Good day, two-wheeled friends. Zack here with RevZilla, and welcome to another episode of Daily Rider, the 50th episode of Daily Rider, for those of you keeping track. More importantly, our guest today is the Vespa Primavera 150. So that's a simple little single-cylinder engine tucked into one of the most iconic and recognizable chassis in the motorcycling world, for sale for $5,500. It's a simple little machine, but of course there's a lot to talk about when it comes to Vespa, this one in particular. You got little siblings, you got big siblings, and of course the storied history of becoming one of the most famous two-wheeled vehicles in the history of the world. So I suppose we should get to riding so we can get to talking. Let's do it, everybody. All right, everybody. Welcome, and here we go. Before we get started, a friendly reminder that this episode of Daily Rider is brought to you by Michelin. Michelin makes tires for all the vehicles we cover here on Daily Rider and many more. So when it comes time to replace the rubber on your street bike, your dirt bike, your Vespa, for example, start by clicking on the link in the description of this video, shopping Michelin products, and you'll be supporting Daily Rider. Alrighty, Vespa Primavera 150. Where do we start? Well, I guess we start with the fact that it's a scooter. That's pretty obvious, right? Scooters have this sort of step-through design, and that means an underbone frame that goes like this. Those are often made of steel, and they are heavy, which is why scooters are kind of heavier than you'd think they would be in general. Of course, it's also much more common to see single-sided front ends on scooters. It's kind of an iconic thing for Vespa. I always think it looks cool to sort of like display the wheel a little bit and kind of sets it apart from other two-wheel vehicles, of course. And also that means that there isn't a conventional fork in here, right? It's a long stem with a split to the side. It's a kind of different front end setup and a different suspension, which leaves you with less suspension travel and of course a smaller wheel, which we'll talk about later when we ride. So also a single-sided rear swing arm situation is pretty common for a scooter because the whole swing arm is the engine assembly. The engine assembly is the swing arm, etc. So it's pretty common to have a single-sided swing arm back there, and it's usually covered with a muffler and exhaust on that side. And of course, while we're talking about the back end, there's this very, very iconic shape, this sort of like teardroppy, swoopy shape to the tail end, which is, as legend has it, is what made the first person who saw it to say it looks like a wasp. And Vespa is Italian for wasp, Latin for wasp. Both, I think. And the mechanics under there, it's a 155cc 4-stroke 3-valve engine. So very simple little 4-stroke engine. You'll hear it does not make a ton of noise. Aside from that, it's meant to be a simple sort of arrive and ride, twist and go, easy as you like situation. So let's fire it up, I guess. You got to hold the brake whilst you also have to turn it all the way on, Zack. There we go. Now a little dash fires up. There we go. Not much to it. Yeah, a handsome little machine, and we're gonna see how it gets us to the office, I suppose. All right. Right, scoot. Here we go. All right, now that we're bopping along city streets here, we can talk about specs. As always, you got yourself a 31.1 inch seat height, which I did get a question on Instagram about how that actually feels. And it is kind of like, it's fairly wide, and a 31 inch seat height isn't crazy low or anything, but it does feel much more approachable than a typical motorcycle because of the step through aspect of it, and the center of gravity is quite low. Like I said, it's surprisingly heavy, as scooters often are. This one tipped the scales at 292 pounds on the Daily Rider scales, and that's a lot, considering it's a pretty small little bike. It carries 2.1 gallons of fuel under the seat, and that little engine churn away in there has a claimed horsepower number of 12.9, I believe. So 13 horsepower at the crank. So significantly less at the back wheel, and I don't remember what the torque number is, but you know what, I honestly don't think it matters very much. I hope you're not offended by that. Alrighty, since we don't get to peel through the off-ramp with any real roll speed at all, you can talk about ergonomics and what it feels like to sit on this little sucker. And it's very comfortable. It's a little weird if you're used to a motorcycle because your feet are kind of out in front of you and they're next to each other. Your knees are together if you want them to be. But in general, it's a pretty comfy riding position. The distance from the handlebar to the seat is pretty short, so it's kind of compact and you can scoot forward and be right near the bar if you want to, and you're pretty upright, which is good. Oop, this guy wants to, thank you. So yeah, pretty basic scooter riding position, and I think that's pretty good because it fits all types of people. You can see my knees still have 3-4 inches before they're anywhere near the handlebar at 6'2", so I mean you could be taller than I am and still fit on this thing, and I think you could be quite a bit shorter and still fit just fine. If you're not familiar with basic scooter operating procedure, there's no clutch, of course. This is the rear brake over here instead of it being with your right foot like it would be on a motorcycle. This is the front brake on my right hand, which is typical. And then there's there's no transmission at all. It's a little CVT, so you twist this guy and you go, and you don't twist it and you don't go. Well, that's all there is to it. And from an accessibility standpoint, I always appreciated that about scooters, they're unintimidating. And depending on where you learn to ride a motorcycle, an unintimidating motorcycle to get used to become fluent with as a machine can be really handy because there's lots of other things to distract you, such as merging onto a large road. And speaking of merging onto large roads, I got a bunch of questions on social media about whether or not it's legal to actually ride this bike on a highway like this. And it is, in California anyway. You'll have to check your local jurisdiction to make sure that you're not violating any laws. But in California, you have to have 150 cc's to go on a freeway, a highway. And this is a 155 cc engine, of course, as we learned. So you're good to go on these big roads, but if it opens up a little bit, you'll see that it's not the most capable high-speed machine. All right, so now we're going 65. Traffic's going 65, maybe faster than 65. Basically, I've found 65 is practically the maximum speed that you'll find with the old Primavera 150. If you're 6 feet tall and 200 pounds approximately, as I am, that's what I think you'll find. So yeah, it'll go down the highway. It's legal. It's not a huge problem. But you never really want to be at maximum speed in your vehicle when other cars can be going a lot faster, I don't think. To be fair to the Vespa, this is not necessarily what this version or the smaller displacement versions of Vespas were ever really made for, right? Vespa was spawned from a post-World War II Europe where something that was functional and usable and affordable was paramount, and the Vespa sort of took off as a mode of urban transportation and eventually worked its way toward being a style icon. Have you ever seen Roman Holiday? You see Audrey Hepburn and Gregory Peck ride around Rome on a Vespa. It became this sort of like ideal, romanticized version of urban European transportation. And an LA freeway isn't that. So I think we should take that into consideration. It's only fair to realize that. And to circle back to the siblings, like I promised I would, there is a Primavera 50, so that's a little 50 cc engine in there, and it'll be lighter than this one predictably, and not as fast predictably again. And there's a whole slew of different sort of trim levels of Primavera 150. They got ones with little racks on them and little leather bags and stuff like that. I just went for the simple non-S version because I wanted the sort of basic model. And then yeah, there are other siblings as well. You got your larger displacement Vespas. There's the GTS 300, which then you'll have some actual performance on the freeway. You'll be able to scoot up to speed pretty well. A 300 class engine in there is still a little single, but have a little bit more punch. So yeah, there's a spread, and I did get some questions about why I chose this one in particular. Why not the big fancy one? And it was partly a price thing, and partly just sort of I wanted the middle of the road, highway legal but very approachable version of a Vespa. Two more things to talk about in the short time we have left at this stretch of road. One is fuel mileage, which I didn't do a great job getting numbers, but it was low 70s is what I got. As usual, I would warn you that your fuel mileage numbers will vary depending on how you ride the bike. But yeah, 72, 75, that was kind of what I saw, which is not bad. 2.1 gallon tank, you go a long way. And then obviously we got to talk about mirrors, and these mirrors are darn good. Of course, the nice gentle round shape really suits the Vespa style, and they stick out pretty far. I find them to be pretty smooth and in a good place. I don't see too much of my shoulders or arms. That's great. Alrighty, stop sign challenge, where we try to hit 0 miles an hour at every stop sign without putting our feet down. And I was talking a big game, wasn't I, about how low the center of gravity was on a Vespa. But in general, yeah, that was a good one. In general, the balance around town is almost peerless, I would say. A very, very easy machine to ride around a neighborhood like this for all the kind of obvious reasons, right? I mean, it's the center of gravity is very low, as I said. It's not very big to begin with, and then you got your twist and go throttle. You're not having to work a clutch. It's very, very good at this kind of thing. Sometimes we do outright acceleration tests on Daily Rider just to show you the performance, and you can actually do it in the neighborhood on a Vespa 150, because this is full throttle right here, wide open. You can see it accelerates briskly enough to get you where you're going. Granted, we're going uphill. This is a pretty steep hill right here, but you know, there is no urgency or even whiff of performance, really. It just does what it needs to do, basically. I would say that the throttle response, the engagement of the continuously variable transmission, or CVT, is pretty good. And oh, that's a real bummer. And yeah, it works really well around town. It's more than a lack of urgency as the bike accelerates, though. I'll say there's a feeling of smoothness and kind of lack of drama that I think is intentional. I don't know. Maybe I'm inadvertently putting a positive spin on a slow bike, but I genuinely think that it feels gentle and smooth, because that's the way a scooter should feel around town, is gentle and smooth. You know, you don't want your neck getting snapped back by the transmission engaging, or the belts engaging, or the throttle response being poor, and you want it to be sort of quiet and smooth, and it is, and I appreciate that. All right, off we go. So in this little section of neighborhood, sometimes we talk about how obnoxious or loud a bike is, or, you know, and I often compliment quiet machines for being polite through a neighborhood, because I don't want to tick people off or be a bad ambassador for the two-wheeled world. And boy, the Vespa is really about as polite as it gets. We'll cover that a little bit more in more detail later on. But yeah, as far as bobbing through a neighborhood, I don't know that there is an easier or more pleasant vehicle. It's right up there with any other bike with a CVT and you know, Honda Navi, that kind of thing. Very polite, very quiet, very, very gentle. Alrighty, Lover's Lane, everybody. And the Vespa's passenger accommodations are very easy to test. You can actually just scoot back onto the passenger seat right now, and I can put my feet on these little platforms right here, and I can still reach the handlebars. Yeah, I think the Vespa has quite nice passenger accommodations, and I think depending on the circles you run in, you might find the people that you want to be on the back of your machine to be more excited than you'd expect to get on the back of a Vespa. It's just it's appealing and non-threatening. And you're not going to take any super long trips on this bike, or at least I hope you wouldn't. I think your passenger will be pretty comfy in general. Okie doke. We're already to the twisty section of road here. And if you know anything about scooters, you probably will not be expecting a glowing twisty road report for the Primavera 150. And that's fair because, you know, there's significantly less suspension travel than a sort of quote-unquote normal motorcycle. I don't remember the number off the top of my head. And the wheels are smaller. These are 12-inch wheels you got on this sucker, as opposed to 17s on sort of, again, a normal quote-unquote motorcycle. And I think, you know, that changes the dynamic. The one thing that I think is underappreciated that really does change the feel of a scooter is having something between your knees on a motorcycle really kind of connects you to the machine. Nothing here between my knees means that the bike can kind of move around a little bit more, and you just, you know, you're sat on your little perch and your feet are on these floorboards, but you don't feel like you have a grip of the middle of the bike with your legs. And I think that can offer kind of a little bit of a disconnected feeling from a handling standpoint, if I'm being perfectly honest. I don't think that it's a deterrent for buying a scooter, because you're probably not going to buy a scooter so that you can go to the twisty roads and, you know, slay curves with your buddy on their R6, right? Probably not. So I only bring it up as a feeling that I get when I ride these bikes, and as a way to try and describe how it differs from a regular bike, which I think is interesting and notable. And I mentioned that in the Honda Navi ride as well, because that was something that I didn't expect with the Honda Navi, was to feel so connected to the bike. And I think it's because it has that fuel tank up here and something to grip with your knees. Of course, while we're on the topic of the step through, you might be thinking, well, I'm disconnected from the bike. What's the point of why a scooter then? What is the possible benefit? Well, there are, of course, a number of benefits. One is that this is kind of a weird 1950s thing to say, but you could wear a skirt, which it would be easier. You know, you'd sit here, and if wearing skirts is your thing, then, or a dress, then you know, then this would be perhaps a slightly more practical machine for your use case. The big thing though is weather protection, right? Like, you sit behind this shield, and whether it's running through puddles or you know, riding in a light rain or getting spritzed on the way to the office or wherever the heck you're going, your legs and feet are protected. They're going to stay dry, and there's something to that, I think. All right, red light. We can talk about brakes. We can jump on this front brake. You hear a little chirp there. Pretty good brakes, I think. ABS is front only, so keep that in mind for our back-end challenge later. In general, the brakes are certainly powerful enough to get the job done, but they're also similar to the engine and power delivery and that aspect of the bike, very gentle and soft. And I think that's by design. So if you're used to, I don't know, a sport bike brakes or something, you're going to think that these feel pretty dull. But I think that's because of the consumer, you know, like designed for someone to hop on this and maybe not have two-wheel experience before and not feel intimidated by a really sharp bite in the brake and or really snappy throttle response. So I think it suits the machine. I always want stronger brakes and I always want more bite, but I get it in this case. No, we're stuck at red light. We can talk about the dash, I suppose. It's not going to take very long. You can see there is a speedometer right here. There's an ABS light that flashes. I'm not certain why. And then you got a clock and 2 trip meters and an odometer and a fuel gauge. It's pretty simple. The speedo goes up to 90 miles an hour, which is pretty generous. But speedometers are often generous, right? Green light. Time to go. Sorry, everybody. Yeah, and I think I appreciate that it's simple, you know? It's a simple little machine. It's supposed to be simple. It's not dripping with a bunch of features that are kind of superfluous, I guess. Well, sometimes we talk about the engine here, and I talk about how the engine is the soul of the bike, and you would maybe purchase this motorcycle just for the engine, and that is not the case with a Primavera 150. It is a very utilitarian, almost agricultural little single-cylinder engine in there. It's not meant to be inspiring or anything. It just sort of chug-a-lugs along. Some of the things about old Vespas that really still hold a lot of charm, like the way they used to shift. So Vespas used to have a foot brake, a rear brake down here, and then a front brake here and a throttle here, same as always. And then this was the clutch and the gear shifter. So you would accelerate, and then you'd close the throttle, you'd pull in the clutch, and you'd rotate the gear shifter up and then release the clutch. It was a 3-speed. So you'd, I actually don't remember which way was up and which way was down. But anyway, yeah, you pull in the clutch, twist the grip, and then release it. Very strange to use, but unique and kind of interesting and engaging in a way that that riding a motorcycle is. You know, where you have to have your dexterity sorted out to feel like you know what you're doing. And Vespa's had that, which I think is cool. The Primavera 150 in 2022 is more mainstream and simple and kind of generic from a drivetrain standpoint. This section of road is kind of bumpy. It's not so bad. I thought that was going to be worse. You can get sucker punched by oh, that was a little bit sharp. By potholes on occasion with Vespa, because like I said, 12-inch wheels, kind of small, and you know, not exactly off-road suspension. So yeah, you can kind of get caught out by bumps sometimes. But you also have the agility of a 12-inch wheel to dodge those potholes. Not that I would recommend swerving around, you know. Okay, so a quick recap of the Primavera 150. It is excellent at the stop sign challenge, as we learned, and excellent to look at, and darn good to use. Mostly it harkens back to a different age from an aesthetic standpoint. Practically it's pretty much the same as using any other 150cc scooter, with a couple of small exceptions. I mean, it's great fun. I love riding around on a scooter. It just, especially on a commute like what we've done today, apart from the highway, it feels like the right tool for the job. And I like that about it. Speaking of the right tool for the job, it's time for the dirt road shortcut on a Vespa Primavera 150. Do we have traction control? No, we don't. Can we get Swayze? Not really. Not a ton of power on tap. Like I said, 13 horsepower at the crank, so you know, not great. Yeah, the little wheels bouncing around a little bit, but we're kicking up some dust. We're doing the dang thing. And just like, you know, pounding down whatever road you need to go down is kind of the Vespa's thing. And here we are, same as ever, 2022, gravel road, rattling down this little sucker. Jeez. All right, the jump is kind of smoothed out lately. It's not very big. There we go. Oh, God. Bottomed the fork twice. Oh, boy. Whew. And I am larger than your average bear. Oh, so, you know. But I can't say I'd recommend jumping a Vespa, even if it's set up for jumping, like a Vespa Cross. If you haven't read the Vespa Cross article at RevZilla's Common Tread, please do so. We had a great time. All right, can I do a wheelie? I don't, you know, honestly, I don't know. I'm gonna scoot back. I really don't think so. Let's try it though. I'm gonna slow down. Oh, that was pretty good. I think we can get a slightly better one. One more try here. Try not to loop it. No, that was a crappy one. Someone out there can do a stonking humdinger of a Vespa wheelie, but I'm not the guy. Sorry, everybody. Can we back it in? ABS is front only, remember? You absolutely can back it in. And it makes the most hilarious opera singer noise. Let's do that again, shall we? That was fun. Coming in hot to the office, late braking maneuver. The transmission kind of keeps the wheel rotating, so it's actually a legit back end. It doesn't just lock up. That's really fun. 3 full parking spaces to do the U-turn challenge, and I don't think we're going to need all of them. So confident am I. We're going to start over here. Just 2 parking spaces to go. Turn left. Look at that. Parking space and a half, not even. 1 1/4. Great U-turns. Very good U-turns. What a happy little machine. What a happy little machine. Terrific. That was so fun. Need to get another scoot in my garage. Is the exhaust note inspiring? No, not even a little bit. But the ride maybe is, you know? All right. A couple other things, actually, I realized that I wanted to talk about that I did not in the original parking lot. One of which is the glove box. So if you push the key, push the key in here. Yeah, there you go. The old glove box thing here. You get access to the fuses, which is kind of nice. A USB port, and then space for gloves, for example, or I don't know, water bottle or granola bars, whatever you want to keep in there, you know, which is kind of nice. And then you do have this little key fob on the jigger, and that might be to trigger the alarm, but I'm not going to do that because I don't want to, you know. But suppose you're approaching from the grocery store and you have stuff and you're not sure, and you don't want to put the key in and have to turn it and hit the button. If you hold this down, the little seat pops open, so you can approach and put whatever you like in here, such as a 3/4 helmet, which technically fits, but it doesn't fit all the way. See how it kind of bottoms out before it actually clips? So it fits, but not in a super inspiring way. I kind of wish it was a little bit, there's just a little more space in here. So a typical 3/4 helmet would fit a little bit more elegantly, especially if you have one that you don't want to, you know, you don't want the top to touch the thing when you, I don't know, just throwing it out there. But yeah, waterproof under seat storage, very typical for a scooter, and the Primavera 150 delivers. All right, Instagram question time, everybody. We're going to start off with a question from Stephen J. Greeny, probably Green, actually, who asks, image aside, from riding and practicality point of view only, why get this over a smaller capacity motorcycle for around town? Well, the stuff I mentioned before, right? Your feet stay dry if it rains, your legs is more likely to stay dry when it rains. Waterproof under seat storage, whether that's picking up something at the store on the way home or putting your helmet in there. Those features are legitimate and actually useful, in my opinion. If you don't care, if you're like, I'm going to lock my helmet to the side of the bike and I don't want to ride a Vespa or a scooter because I want to ride a motorcycle, then fine. That's cool. But I do appreciate those features, and they are unique to scooterdom. Aside from the, you know, you got your Honda NC 750 there. It's got the front trunk where you can put a helmet. So, but you know, in general, scooters have that underseat storage and the step through business, which keeps your shoes and pants a little cleaner and drier. So I don't know. It's maybe a basic answer, but there you go. Next question is from Oh Hi Josh. This is a great question. Do you think this Vespa is restricted by its heritage, or has it evolved enough to make sense as a daily rider? Love this question. This is terrific. Is it restricted by its heritage? Interesting. Yeah. I don't know if it's restricted, but it is expensive, right? It's $5,500, so you can get a Ninja 400 for that money, I think, basically. You can get other full-size motorcycles that you can take to a track day or ride across the country. Not that you couldn't ride this across the country, but you know what I mean. You can get a big motorcycle for that amount of money. And I think that's the restriction in the heritage that I see, is that Vespa started off taking on the world and selling millions and millions and millions of their models because and being produced all around the world because they were affordable, and they were sort of like, it was access for the people. And I think now it's almost like it takes itself too seriously because it's the standard bearer. It's the most regal and famous scooter, and so it kind of has to hold its head high and have this aura about it. As far as practically, is it restricted by its heritage? No, not really. I think it still works as a scooter, and I think it looks awfully handsome. But I think your question is very interesting, and I suppose if each of you challenges yourself to answer that question, you might find the reason that you either do or don't like this bike. John Reynolds 66 asks, scooters are available for younger people. 14-year-olds can get a license in my state. Can you see more people getting into motorcycles if there's a scooter revival for young people? Definitely. I think the idea of being able to get your license early and ride a small motorcycle or a scooter would really open up a lot of doors for people, and it would make it attractive and interesting, and people would see the use cases and see the enjoyment of small bikes and scooters earlier. So I would love that, especially as more and more people live in cities. I think, if I was 14 years old and I lived in a city and I could get to school on a bicycle or on a scooter, I feel like I'd jump through the hoops and I'd get my license and I would ride around on a little 50cc scooter. It'd be so much fun. So yes, I do think so, and I hope that happens, John. We'll see how it turns out. Next question, and the last one, I think, is from Caleb Brown 454, who says, with e-bikes and e-scooters getting better and better, is there still incentive to buy the classic Vespa formula? As a student in the city, this has been on my mind for a bit. This is a great question, and this encapsulates, I think, a really essential challenge that Vespa is facing right now, which is that, like I said before, it's not the basic affordable transportation that it once was that led to this meteoric rise in the world of two wheels and in society for being a vehicle of the people. It's more of a heritage piece that you sort of pay for because you really like the aesthetic, which is fair because I think it's quite handsome. But if you can get a pretty nice electric bicycle for less than you'd pay for one of these, and it is the modern dilemma. I think there is an electric Vespa, the Vespa Electrica, I think, which is approximately the performance of a 50cc scooter. Have not ridden one, but I think that electric scooters are a great idea. I really hope that we start moving that direction, because there isn't a whole lot of charm in the drivetrain, as I've said a few times now. And I think that if it were electric, it would offer something different all over again. And who cares if it's heavy, because it already weighs 300 pounds, so whatever. The hurdle to clear, I guess, is price when it comes to that, which, that's a problem for someone else to solve. But that is a great question, and I think a really truly affordable piece of transportation is what you should be looking for if you live in a city and you've been considering this. If you love the Vespa aesthetic, do it. If you don't necessarily care about the Vespa aesthetic, then I think considering an e-bicycle or something like that would, much as it saddens me, probably be smart. Or a Honda Navi, which is nice and cheap, and you can bop around and has waterproof storage. Thanks again, everybody, for all of the questions. Really appreciate it. Stick with us here. We're going to put the sucker on the Daily Rider leaderboard. In 3, 2, 1.
All right, everybody. Here we are inside the shop. The air conditioning is a relief. That was a very warm ride. So while we dry off and get our body temperature down, we can talk through the Vespa Primavera 150, which we got in the hopper, ready to go on the Daily Rider leaderboard. And there aren't a lot of things to compare it to, really. You got your Honda Navi down here. That is the 110cc, $1,800 sort of pseudo motorcycle that's actually kind of a scooter underneath, that Honda started selling this year in the United States. And it's a delightful little machine, but from a fit and finish standpoint, the Vespa certainly is a much higher quality piece. The Vespa is going to be above a Honda Navi, if I'm just a little spoiler alert there. I think we're talking here. Let's just keep it simple and let's talk about these bikes here. You got your Honda Rebel 500, so that's a little 500cc twin cylinder cruiser kind of thing. Very, very good bike, easy to ride, fun. BMW S1000RR, totally different ball game. Extremely fast, not so comfortable, very expensive. As you can see, we got fire and price logos next to the S1000RR. So where do you think the Vespa stacks up? Is it a better daily rider than an S1000RR? I mean, if you're riding across New York City, if you're commuting from Brooklyn to somewhere in Manhattan, yeah, a Vespa's a better daily rider. Really, I mean, it is. But I'm not gonna put it there. I can't put it above an S1000, even though it is a good daily rider. It is practical, it is useful, but realistically, it's down here. And it's tough, right? Because it's apples to oranges, is what it is. It's not really fair to compare these two machines side by side, and yet that's what we're doing. At any rate, super fun ride on the Vespa. I love scooters. I hope you love them a little bit more now as well. And if you're considering getting a scooter for getting around a college campus or getting around a city or just to have around as a runabout to go to the grocery store or something like that, they're really fun little machines, and I think you'll enjoy one. And they're not hugely expensive, especially on the used market. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. I guess that's it. Appreciate your time. Hope you had fun. Hope you learned a thing or two. And I'll see you next time on Daily Rider. Later.
Ah, look at that tiny little truck. Van thing. Right-hand drives like a Daihatsu or something. I can't tell what it is. It's freaking awesome though. Terrific. It's got a Honda badge on it and an Arizona plate. No surprise there. I'll register anything in Arizona, like a Dumb and Dumber bike.